The quiet observer. In the world, Mira was a ghost in a denim jacket. She moved through the buzzing hallways of the high school like a leaf on a river, carried by the current, but never quite part of the water. While others shouted over the locker slams and pop songs, Mira listened. She saw the way the sunlight caught the dust motes, and the way the math teacher always tapped his ring twice before starting a lesson. Her silence wasn't an absence. It was an attic full of treasures. But the silence had a shadow. When the crowds grew too thick or the laughter too loud, the static would arrive. It started as a hum in her ears and ended as a tightness in her chest that made her feel like a puzzle with missing pieces. In the middle of English class, she would stare at her notebook, the words of the poem she loved trapped behind a wall of what-ifs. What if she spoke and her voice cracked? What if they saw the static too? Her favorite place to hide was the small, forgotten courtyard behind the biology wing. It was a patch of wild green in a world of gray concrete. There, the static faded, replaced by the rhythmic rustle of the oak tree. Mira would sit and watch a spider weave its web between the rusted iron bars of the gate. She felt a kinship with the spider. It worked in secret, building something beautiful and strong that most people simply walked right through. One Tuesday, the courtyard was occupied. A boy named Silas was sitting on Mira's favorite stone bench. He was a year older, known for his quiet demeanor and the heavy vintage camera he carried everywhere. Mira froze, the static rising like a tide. Her first instinct was to turn and run, to find a different corner where she didn't have to exist in someone else's space. But Silas didn't look up with a judgmental glare or a loud greeting. He was focused on the lens of his camera, adjusting it with slow, deliberate movements. He seemed to be part of the quiet, not an intruder upon it. Mira took a tentative step forward, her heart drumming against her ribs. She watched him frame a shot of the old oak tree, his movements graceful and calm. "The light is better on the other side of the trunk," Mira whispered. The words escaped before she could give the static permission to stop them. She immediately felt the heat rise to her cheeks, her hands diving into her pockets. Silas looked up, his eyes blinking slowly behind his glasses. He didn't laugh. He didn't ask her why she was there. He simply looked at the tree, then back at her. "You're right," Silas said, his voice a low, steady hum that didn't spark the anxiety. He stood up and moved to the spot she had suggested. Click. "I've been trying to get this shot for a week, but I kept looking at the branches. I didn't see the shadow they were casting on the bark." He looked at her then, not as a stranger to be navigated, but as a fellow traveler. "I'm Silas." "Mira," she replied. The name felt lighter than usual. "I come here to watch things. It's less noisy." Silas nodded, as if he understood exactly what she meant. They sat on the bench together, the silence between them different from the silence in the hallways. It was a shared space, a bridge instead of a wall. Here, where teen problems meet real conversations, Mira felt the static begin to dissolve into something clear and bright. "Sometimes I feel like I'm looking through a lens even when I don't have the camera," Silas confessed, looking at the overgrown grass. "It makes it hard to talk to people who only want to see the surface." Mira looked at him, truly seeing him. She realized that the deep thinkers weren't lonely because they were broken. They were just looking for someone else who knew how to speak the language of the quiet. The next day, the hallways were still loud, the lockers still slammed, and the static still tried to hum. But as Mira walked toward her locker, she saw Silas in the distance. He gave her a small, almost invisible nod. Mira took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the attic treasures in her mind. She wasn't just a ghost anymore, where teen problems meet real conversations. The quiet observer finally found her voice.